Welcome to Semiosis 101 Season 2's 8th semiotic video. If you've watched Semiosis 101 videos before, then you already know I am Dave Wood. Season 2's semiotic theme is a semiotic Rosetta Stone, which is a metaphor to the unlocking and design-essential translation of Charles Sanders Peirce's semiotic theory of semiosis, sign action. Why do you need Semiosis 101? Peirce's writing and terminology is very obtuse. This week I wrap up our conversation around what semiotics can do for me. Last week we reframed the do and me to encode richer meaning instead. This was proposed through embracing a communicational relationship space between client, creative and audience, in which the three levels of representational semiotic sign action can begin to trigger the perceptions of the target audience. Now, we will look at this. Hit subscribe and I will explain. I realise I may be asking many Semiosis 101 viewers to rethink their dualist notion that as designers or illustrators, their relationship is only directly with their clients. What I am arguing in these videos is that the relationship is more open-ended as it involves the target audience proactively. This argument I make is firmly within the very three-way open-ended sign action of Peirce's semiosis. I am, like Thomas Wendt, author of Design for Dasein, which I will be reviewing in a future video, I'm arguing for a phenomenological design process to aid creatives in the effectiveness of their visual communication practice. Peirce's semiosis is formed from his own phenomenological philosophy. See Season 1 episodes 15 to 80. We saw that phenomenology manifests itself last week within the three representational levels of the iconic, indexical and symbolic. This week we have reframed the do for me question into a question about hooking and maintaining the attention in the target audience from the creative's aesthetic. I will in later Season 2 be reviewing another useful book on pragmatic aesthetics by Richard Schusterman. But within Peirce's phenomenology, it is its philosophical pragmatic heart. With pragmatism, it is how the application works. Within visual communication design, the ideation phase is where the most suitable sign action to facilitate effective interpretation is explored. By involving the audience, even at this stage abstractly, in the ideation helps the creator to find a visual language that will be appropriate to the representation of the concept and facilitates its intended interpretation. A dualist model of a client-creative relationship will not help either the creative nor client. The creative's aesthetic is not the end of visual communication, it is only the device to hook and then retain attention. For the aesthetic to work harder beyond the subjective surface level of decoration, semiosis, if mindfully applied, will aid the creative to maximise its potential in the eyes of the audience. Klaus Krippendorf, in his book The Semiotic Turn, argues for the movement of design thinking to extend beyond the creative through what they design illustrate, to create a sense of meaning beyond its parts. This framing of the design process takes into account that design thinking deals with people and their experiences. A phenomenological framework provides the creative with the philosophical space in which to explore the life worlds of their target audience. Phenomenology provides creatives with a basis to make and visually test experiential claims. Wendt states that design is the process of enacting the human experience through what is designed. A life world is a phenomenological term that encapsulates the notion of a personal lived experience. It is a useful shorthand term within which we can now move the conversation onto how, semiotically speaking, to find ways to hook and retain the audience's attention for a while. Remember, whatever a creative designs or illustrates will be immediately competing for attention amongst all the other visual noise of 21st century existence. What clues can be found within examining the life world of the target audience, which may be useful when developing the aesthetics visual language? This is where the early sketching by creators meets Peirce's first phenomenological level of iconic representation of a concept. It is within these clues the perceptual sign action trigger can be crafted. In last week's episode, we discussed the sign action determination flow between the thing to be communicated, how an encoded semiotic sign for that thing can represent it, and how from that thing's semiotic representation meaning can be extracted from just the sign so the thing can be decoded and understood. Phenomenologically in Peirce, each of those 3 points in the determination flow contain a further 3 levels of complexity. We do not need to go any deeper into that part of Peirce for at least 2 more Semiosis 101 seasons, but I gave a brief outline of these levels in Season 1's episodes 7 and 8. What is important from this, in the context of this week's episode, is what bearing each of the 3 determination flow points have on hooking attention. In point A of the determination flow, the semiotic communication has to begin. The sign has to be perceived, but first it has to be encoded. Peirce calls this the object. From a designer-centric point of view, this term is not very useful. So in Semiosis 101, I substitute concept as an analogue, which will be more conducive to the creator's established design process. In a similar way, at point B, Peirce calls the semiotic sign that encodes the object concept through representing it the representamen. Again, as a creative analogue, I substitute the word representation to keep the flow clear in the creative's understanding. Finally, at the point C, the decoded meaning is successfully made, hopefully, from the representamen, representation, as an interpretation. This is my Semiosis 101 analogue for Peirce's term of interpreters. The micro-level determination flow explains the flow of the sign action, but semiosis is open-ended. It is not a simple 1, 2, 3, bingo, a process. Semiosis is cyclical, as once the C point of interpretation is reached, further concepts through encoded signs can be discovered, leading the audience deeper into discovering the meaning. It is worthwhile to consider in the sign action determination flow that as C is the interpreted stage, we can at a macro level point of understanding place the target audience as a macro analogue of C. Therefore, at this macro level, B is an analogue to the creative and A an analogue of the client's brief. The starting point of the client's brief for the macro determination flow's objective concept to represent should be thought of more as the summarizing by the client of intent for exploration, rather than a specification list. Are you still with me? Good. We are building now to the payoff on how to hook and retain audience attention. Architect Richard McCormack reinforces this thought by pointing out that this exploration of the needs of the brief is an emergent activity that is reflective and evolving. Phenomenology helps creators to find appropriate hooks into the attention of the target audience. The audience's Lifeworld lived experiences with the concept is an exploratory internal-external interaction of visual possibilities. These possibilities may become visual shorthand to things that the audience are familiar with already through sketching. Donald Schoen refers to this sketching ideation moment as between a situation and a designer in a sort of conversation. This dualism between the creative and the thing to communicate can be enhanced by the creative considering a visual shorthand to the audience. The lowest level of semiotic representation of the concept is iconic representation. Think basic visual building blocks that individually are ephemeral, but once composited into a context, begin to encode meaning. I will reuse a favourite visual example of what I mean. I will return to our faithful panda to demonstrate once more how attention can be hooked. A black splodge shape is just that, but a second, smaller black splodge or two near the first, add a few black marks here, there, all of a sudden a representation of what appears to be an animal emerges. If as the audience in your life world you have experience of this type of animal, you can name it as a panda. If from this point you realise as a social cultural reference within your life world that this now is a logo, well, we will include this 9th Season 2 episode by summarising where we now are. In the panda example, a black splodge is just that. Once its compositional context is perceived, the same black splodge begins to suggest something more. At this stage, the black splodge's sign action has been triggered by the audience's perception. The black splodge is familiar to an ear, a thigh, etc. Only if the quality is recognised as a resemblance to something the audience has in their lived experience. The black splodge is a simple sketched element. The black splodge is a basic visual communication building block. The black splodge is iconic representation. The black splodge has hooked and retained the audience's attention. It is just a black splodge and a powerful sign action poised to trigger deeper meaning. Come back next week for another semiotic question to be answered. I am Dave Wood, a design educator and researcher, a published design author, and I've worked commercially as both a freelance illustrator and graphic designer. The guy behind the theory, Charles Sanders Peirce, was a philosopher, a mathematician, and a theorist. But he was not a creative. Each week on this Scout Scott Semiosis 101 YouTube channel, I will post at least one 10-minute explainer video on an aspect of Peirce's pragmatic semiotic theory. Each video will feature a take-home piece of applicable semiotic theory, and they do interconnect to build up your understanding of semiosis. Each free Semiosis 101 10-minute video will use design-centric terms instead of theoretical language. As a fellow creative and a published design author, I have a link in the description to my Scout Scott website. If you're interested in reading my Semiotic Rosetta Stone academic writing, then you can visit my academia.edu link in the description. Any other books on Peircean semiotics or design I have mentioned in the videos are also listed in the description. Check them out too. On the Semiosis 101 Substack semiotic resource, I have support materials for both free and paid subscribers. There are full annotated reading lists, video transcripts, 5-minute reads, plus other goodies and exclusive Semiosis 101 merchandise. The Substack link is in the description. Thanks for watching. Check out the other Semiosis 101 videos, like and share them with your friends, and hit the bell and subscribe buttons to be notified when next week's free Semiosis 101 video is published. You can also follow Semiosis 101 on the socials for updates. It is Semiosis 101 on Instagram and Twitter. See you all again next week for more Semiosis 101 to help illustrators and designers to enhance your visual communication skills.